There is a huge myth out there that if your kids don't go to school or if they're not constantly enrolled in co-ops, sports, and activities with kids their exact age, they're going to end up socially awkward, behind, or somehow less. Today, we're going to bust that myth wide open. My name is Liana Francisco. I'm a grown unschooler. I'm 42 years old and I was completely unschooled from the ages of birth until 16 when I started college. I have two children of my own that I unschool now, and I help parents shift from that school based thinking to confident, connected parenting without school. So, the moment you tell someone you're unschooling or homeschooling, what's the first question you get? But what about socialization? It's almost like there's this collective fear that children who aren't in a classroom for at least 6 hours a day, surrounded by 25 other kids their exact age, will somehow grow up not knowing how to talk to people or how to make friends or how to function in the world. But let's think about that for just a second. Is school really the gold standard for healthy social development? Or is it simply the most familiar system we've been taught to accept? Here's what most people don't consider. School age peer groups are an artificial construct. In human history, kids weren't raised in giant rooms of 30 same age peers. They were part of families, villages, mixed aged communities. The truth is that when kids spend most of their social time with same age peers, they often learn unhealthy habits, competition, status anxiety, bullying dynamics, pressure to conform, fear of being different. They're not necessarily learning how to navigate real social settings. They're learning how to survive in a very specific environment that often doesn't resemble adult life at all. Think about it. Adults rarely work, live, or thrive only with people their exact age. Real life is mixed. Unschooling gives kids something much richer: mixed age play, deep relationships with adults who value them, time with siblings and neighbors, maybe even with cousins and grandparents. Mixed age play is powerful because everyone learns from one another. It's a common belief that younger kids learn from older ones, and older kids learn leadership and patience by guiding younger ones. That is true, but in my experience as someone who was unschooled, it's also true that each child has their own strengths and teaches others regardless of their age. For example, a younger child may be particularly good at solving engineering type problems, and they're the leader of the group when it's time to build a fort. Or perhaps the oldest one is the best one at reading, so they'll take the lead to read instructions to the whole group. And the middle child, maybe they're really interested in plants and they're the ones to ask, is this nettle before you go and play under a new tree? And everyone trusts their expertise and learns from one another. And interacting with adults, whether it's parents, a librarian, a shop owner, the neighbor who loves to garden, the mailman, that teaches kids how to move through the real world. They learn to talk to all kinds of people, not just the ones who happen to share their birth year. So let's talk about something else that makes people nervous. What if their closest or only close friends are their siblings? I hear this a lot, and let me tell you, that is not a problem. That is a gift. When someone tells me, oh, they play all day just with each other and they don't want to go out and see other people. I don't see a problem with that. When siblings are close, when they have time to bond with each other without being pulled in 10 different directions, they develop lifelong relationships built on trust and shared experiences. Those are the relationships that will sustain them for the rest of their lives. They learn conflict resolution at home, they practice kindness and compromise, and they can absolutely be each other's best friends. This is not something to fear, this is something to celebrate. Now, here's where a lot of parents start to panic. Okay, so if not school, then I need to sign them up for co ops and clubs, sports classes, right? Here's the truth: you don't want to overschedule your kids to prove they're socialized. It's unnecessary. Unschooling isn't about replacing school at home, it's about giving kids space to grow into who they actually are. Some unschooling families absolutely love co ops and classes and sports, and that is great. There is nothing wrong with that, but it is not required. Your child does not need a jam packed schedule to thrive socially. A slower pace, unstructured time, and natural interactions in the world are enough. That's okay. So, for example, your child wakes up in the morning, they have whatever their favorite activity is to do in the morning. They play outside with their siblings or with neighbors or friends. Then you go on some sort of outing to the library or to a playground or meet up with friends, something like that. You come home, you do chores together, you make dinner together, you eat, you read books, you go to sleep. Nothing is wrong with that day. That is a perfect day from my perspective. And it's provided the child with lots of opportunities to discover who they are and to learn through life. So let's set the record straight. Children don't need to be surrounded by 25 of the same age peers every day to become socially competent. They don't need to be constantly enrolled in activities to make friends or learn how to relate to others. Siblings can absolutely be their closest and best friends. Mixed age relationships and meaningful adult connections are not just enough, they are incredibly rich and developmentally healthy. If you're an unschooling parent, you can take a breath. You don't have to run yourself ragged trying to recreate school's version of socialization. Trust the process, trust the relationship, trust your child. If this gave you some peace of mind, then hit that like button, share it with the parent who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more encouragement on your unschooling journey. You're not alone, and you're doing way better than you think.